Hey everybody, it's here, episode 4 of Insider Movies, October, season 2, and we are here. So Halloween is just around the corner, and I hope you are ready, and I hope you enjoy the vintage, and let's get going. So the very first one we're going to do, remember we have 4 categories. We have classic, we have family, we have suspense, and then we have horror, and hopefully my insiders did a good job for you of building up. So I've seen a lot of movies this year that I never thought I'd ever see. I have braved it. I honestly, like last year I thought I did good. This year I have really white knuckled it. I have been through some movies this year. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. So we have hopefully moved up this way for you. So I'm really excited to share the final movies of this entire series for season 2 so that you guys can be well-rounded and ready for Hollywood when you get to Hollywood and the Hollywood industry and the movies you need to know. I've been seeing a lot of things out on social media lately and in the media talking about Hollywood's top films, and all of our films are in like the top 10, and it's really great to see that other industry insiders and stuff like that are actually affirming that these are the ones that you need to know, and that it's actually getting out there. These are the ones that you need to know, you need to be aware of, that people forget to actually say. It's good that Hollywood is at least some people are actually starting to speak again about the things that you need to know, that they assume that you know, and you really don't. Like, they all just assume that you know these movies, and that's not actually true. And it's good that we're starting to write about it again and make lists again, instead of starting, the ones that need to be remade or the ones that are the worst. And we always do that today. We say, what are the worst and things like that, instead of saying, like, what are the classics and what are the things that directors build on today, and what are the ones you need to see, not are the directors that you need to see, but what are the things that form the basis of the directors that are great today? What are the things that formed their view of, horror movies? What are the things that formed their worldview of filmmaking and story making and things like that? These are the stories that you need to know. And so we have 4 categories. We have family. I actually just went through them, right? So let's go ahead and get started. So, all right. So number 1, we have Frankenstein. So we have now done, what I did is I gave you the originals of all of these movies, but with Frankenstein, I'm not going to do that, because when it comes to Frankenstein, and I actually want to mention 2 others that you just need to know, because for those of you who are looking for, well, actually, no, I'll go into that later, but Frankenstein is there are all these movies. There's going to be a bunch that you can find. I just want you to find a black and white Frankenstein. You're going to find a bunch of them. And the thing is that there's going to be debates about which one's the real one. No, like, the point is that it's the character that you need to know. And there are a bunch of different ones. And that's the way Hollywood worked, is that they just kept making movies with these characters. They made a bunch of them, and you could go see a bunch of these movies all the time. They would remake Elvira ones. You'd see Elvira all the time, or you'd see Frankenstein all the time, or you'd see a Dracula movie all the time. And they just remake these movies all the time. They're just characters that Hollywood loved to redo and replay and replay and replay and things like that. So you're going to find a lot of them, and I want you to explore those and pick one and just see what the kind of movie making that they did. It's a genre that you need to know. And then out of those came like the Addams Family, and then that became a TV show. And I mentioned those things like the Addams Family and things like the Rocky Horror Picture Show. All those are things that I mentioned in the honorable mentions of season 1. So if you haven't seen season 1, I mentioned the honorable mentions in episode 1 of season 1, and I'll link that right here for you so you can view that, and I talk about the honorable mentions right there. Those are things that are not necessarily movies, or those are TV shows and other things that you need to know, that aren't going to necessarily be just like a classic solid movie that you need to see, and that don't fall into these categories. They're not necessarily traditional. So Frankenstein just is in that whole genre, and we were debating about, like, well, which one of the characters do you really need to see? Because sometimes they group them all into the same movie. They group a bunch of these characters in the same movie. But Frankenstein is the one that most often had his own movie and just had all these different variations. I happen to really like, my favorite Frankenstein is the original book. So I happen to really, really like the original book of Frankenstein. And I know that Mary Shelley actually wrote her own manuscript, and then her husband was a really famous writer. And then he actually went through, she asked him to go, they were married, and she actually asked him to go through the manuscript, and like, you know, she asked him to be an editor, which you'd be amazed at what editors do to writing today. Like, I just swear it's absolutely phenomenal, because when you think of the greats, when you think of the canon, of the English canon of literature, none of those guys had editors. Everyone's like, oh, you need an editor. And I'm like, BS, you do. If you're a good writer, you don't need a good editor. You maybe need a like proofreader, but BS on the editor, like, I don't think so. Maybe you need a good therapist. Maybe you need a good counselor. Maybe you need a good reading group or whatever, and to get feedback or whatever. But no, if you're a good writer, you're good. Like, just if you are a publisher and you're like, they're a bad writer, give them books to read. Reading levels, and reading makes a writer a better writer. Like, that's the only thing that will make them a better writer. You don't give it editors. Editors just rewrite stuff. They reorganize paragraphs and all this kind of stuff. It's the biggest pile of junk, this whole editor thing. I know I'm going to get a lot of trouble for that, but I just think all I ever think of is, like, I think Milton. I'm like, oh, did Milton have an editor? Did Shakespeare have an editor? No! You know, Charles Dickinson didn't have an editor. You know what I'm saying? Like, they didn't have editors that sat there, and I just, like, you know, you wonder why writing isn't so great today. And I'm like, yeah, because an editor went through and just tore it apart and didn't say, go back and make it better. And I don't think it's this, you know, and, you know, there's feedback. They're actually rewriting things and stuff like that. So I don't know how I got onto all of that. It's just, it's remarkable to me, the power that editors have today. They just, they can't write. It's like editors, like, you know, it's remarkable. It's remarkable because but that's what Shelley did. And so there's actually debate about what Shelley did to Mary Shelley's actual manuscript and stuff. But she came to him and she's like, because he was this big famous author, and, you know, there weren't a lot of women writers at the time, and she's like, can you please, you know, take a look at it and rewrite it? And he made it all flowery and everything. She had this really raw, dramatic editor, this edit script, and I wonder if you can actually get her original manuscript and stuff like that. And hers is really raw and like, and then he made it really like all this prose and everything like that. And I don't care. I liked both manuscripts. You know, probably her original manuscript would do better today, but I think his just like knocked it up like 3 reading levels. That's what he did. You know, he just knocked it up a few reading levels. You know, she had, you know, hers were more monosyllabic. It doesn't matter. You know, it's a bit more intense, monosyllabic, whatever. It's just a different writing style, a different reading level, and whatever, but both were really, really good. And so I think that those, can you tell that's my favorite Frankenstein? That's my favorite Frankenstein. But these are all very campy. They're all B movies. They're all crazy. They're all the very, you'll see there's not a huge difference between all of them. There's not a huge difference, but they would just make, like, every year that a new one would come out, and there's so many of them, and it's a genre that you need to know about. You've got to know about this. So I said we were going to do in this classics thing, I said that we were going to do classics, and we did like Godzilla, and we did Invasion of the Body Snatchers and all this stuff. But in the genre of classics, there's all these different genres of what they used to do. You know, there's the B movie genre, and then there's this, like, you could call these all B movies, but they're not necessarily all B movies necessarily. For back then, they were just kind of like, they would be that, like, okay, like Dracula and Frankenstein would be like the Netflix of the day. Would you call Netflix B movies? You know what I'm saying? Like, no, it's just like, it's not like Transformers. All right. So number 2 is the family movie. All right. So this is controversial. So I'm going to give you options. That's what I'm going to do. So, because we got into arguments about what to do. So I'm going to say that here are the family ones, like the families you need to know. Well, you're going to need to know all of these, I guess. Well, I don't know. We're having debates. So the group has not decided. I'm actually impressed that we haven't been able to decide until now. So, like, that's actually impressive. Like, that we're so large and we've been in agreement. Huh? Okay. We've had our first disagreement. Yay! All right, first family argument. All right, so for families, like, and for everyone, you have to know who Casper the Friendly Ghost is anyway, and you have to know who Scooby-Doo is anyway, and you don't No, the reruns or the rewrites. You need to go back to the originals and actually like watch a few episodes of the original Scooby-Doo. Like you actually have to do it. You know what I mean? Like you have to go watch the original episodes. And then the same thing with Casper the Friendly Ghost, which actually I don't think there's been any really reruns or whatever. But also those are just really great when Halloween comes. If you're used to playing Charlie Brown and you really like the Charlie Brown and the Great Pumpkin from last year, Casper the Friendly Ghost will be great for you. That'll be perfect. It's along the same lines. And Scooby-Doo is the same way. Those are totally family-friendly, safe, that you can play, that are along the same lines of Charlie Brown. You will be safe. You will be good. You'll be safe. All right? But they're both things that you need to know. Absolutely. All right. So the other one is the thing that I talked about, Steven Spielberg, that is Coraline. I happen to think, is it Steven Spielberg or is this the other one? Coraline. So, this is, I think, I'd say the group is like 50-50 on whether or not, no, I think it came down to like, don't do it. But oh well. So, there's Coraline. So, I think, actually, now that I think about it, the group was like, don't do it. But oh well, we had it on the list. So, you can do it if you want. So I wouldn't show it to my kid in a million years, but it's up to you if you want to do it. So maybe it's just because I know child psychology or whatever and stuff like that, but you just go ahead, and I really want to encourage you, you go ahead and watch Charlie Brown, and I want you to watch, because Charlie Brown's, The Great Pumpkin, all right? And you go ahead and watch, like, Ann Coulter and, Anderson Cooper, if you want to say Anderson Cooper or whatever. But just like all the people in politics, all the anchors and everyone that's out there, like that whole generation and stuff like that, like that's all the leaders and stuff like that today, that's what they were raised on. And where there's just this gap, you know what I mean? Like there's this gap, and everyone's like, where are the younger people? And I'm just like, yeah, that's Coraline. Go ahead and compare, like, Great Pumpkin to Coraline. And you tell me, like, when we decided to start, like, entertaining it, did we, when did we start thinking kids were able to handle that, and ask yourselves, like, so, I don't know. If you Hollywood people, if you think that they need to know it, you can talk to your people and you think you need to know it. I had never heard of it. I'd heard... Oh gosh, yeah. There were circles I'd heard it in, and it wasn't in good like it was in not good circle. Like we're talking like, to the point where I didn't think it was a kids movie. You know what I mean? Like, so I was shocked to kind of hear like, oh, it's a kid movie. So, it's up to you. Your call. I was shocked. Your call. So, I don't know. You know me. I think that movies are supposed to entertain, and I haven't heard in any of our discussions, and I couldn't get them to tell me, no one uses it to base their stuff on. Does that make sense? Like, I shouldn't go into behind the scenes stuff. All right. Oh well. Awkward. All right. So, all right, now into the two big ones we have suspense and then we have horror. So suspense is, and this is, you can go, okay, suspense, we decided suspense would be Deliverance. Now, when I saw Deliverance, I remember I saw Deliverance, and they do such a good job. It'll depend on who you are and how you are emotionally and all that stuff. Like, when I saw The Shining, I was just like, I don't get it. Like, I was just like, this movie goes on forever. I don't get it, and it was like nothing happened in the end. I didn't see what was so scary about The Shining. I just did not get it. Deliverance, totally different story. I was just like, like early on, and I remember my friend would just kept saying, it's a 70s movie, Katherine, nothing happens till the end. I don't get the way it's done, the movie is done so well that you're just like, Like you're just, the music is done so well that you're just sitting there like you want to take your paper. You just want to sit there and go, it's really, they do such a good job on it and everything like that. And it's referenced so much. I mean, that's why we're doing it in week 4, because it's still referenced nearly every night on late night television. It's always referenced. You gotta know this movie. And it was a big debate whether or not to put it in last year's. It was really hard not to put it in. So it is just it's just a cultural classic. It's referenced all the time. The music is used. The music is a huge classic. It's big in the music industry. It's extremely hard to play. It's one of my favorite songs of all time. I learned about, that's my first exposure to Deliverance, was in the dance community. Actually, that's the thing, is that it didn't just affect the movie industry. It didn't just affect entertainment or the culture. That way, it also went into other arts and entertainment industries. Like, you know, if you weren't involved in going out to seeing movies, which we never had time to do, if you're traveling all these other places, it would still affect those things. Like, we were out, you know, doing all these other things, and it still got there. It still affected other arts and entertainment. So, like, you still saw it in routines here, or you heard it referenced in, you know, presentations. It was just everywhere. You know what I mean? People doing parodies of it and memes of it. Gotta know it. Just gotta know Deliverance, you know, and all the actors ended up being big. It was in the Jaws era. A lot of new movies were coming out. I don't know why so many of these movies are in that era, but Hollywood, anyway, so, incredible. We did, you gotta know it. So, gotta know Deliverance, gotta know it. All right, and then the final one is, and I finally saw it this year, oh my gosh. Finally saw it this year, was Carrie. And Carrie, which was also a big one, you're probably wondering why it wasn't on last year. Trust me, it was a big debate, but it is Carrie. Carrie is finally here as Sissy Spacek, who is absolutely phenomenal. I can't believe they even bothered trying to redo it. You've got to be joking. Sissy Spacek is the bomb. Like, she's the bomb. She's the bomb. So you got to know it just for her, if anything at all. Incredibly well done film. Incredibly well done film. And I feel like it is, I mean, besides the fact that Carrie's referenced all the time, but it took on high school bullying. It's really funny because each generation in the group, it was funny how it had been used in each generation knew it carried different for the way it was used culturally. Does that make sense? Like, one generation knew it for its sales. One generation knew it for the blockbuster. One generation knew it for horror. The other generation knew it for bullying. Like, one generation, like, for bullying school, like, anti-bullying campaign. The other generation knew it for horror and all the same. Like, it's just like, every generation had known it in a different way, which means it just keeps coming back. It always revives it some. So whoever's behind Carrie or whatever just keeps reviving it. It just keeps reviving it for any generation. It must, every 10 years, it must come back or whatever. So I can't believe they try to revive it or whatever, but it just comes back no matter what. And you can do that. You can do that with movies that are done well. When the storytelling's done well, and you've noticed that, that's part of Insider Movies, is that I can give you a movie from any freaking decade, and if the story's done well, that's what directors are supposed to be aiming for. That's what screenwriters are supposed to be aiming for. It's the whole freaking reason I started Insider Movies, is that I want you to be able to enjoy, and when you watch a movie, I want you to be able to actually be entertained again. I want you to be able to escape reality for a little while, feel good at the end of the movie, feel like you're removed from reality for a little while, and at the end of it, feel good. You know, that's it. That's the whole point, is that the end of it, it shouldn't tear your life apart. It should build your life up and feel like it added to your life in some way. And Carrie does that. You end up walking away feeling like you saw something whole and good and put together or whatever and stuff like that. So it's creepy and it's good, and part of it is that there's like part of the good filmmaking is that there's all these analogies and stuff like that. Like, there's all these layers and all these analogies. But the big thing about good story making in this one is that, you know, the horror doesn't really happen. Like, the horror doesn't, like, oh, I would say the opening scene is horror. There's a lot of us in the group who hadn't seen it. We were just too young. We hadn't seen it yet, and we hadn't seen it. And we were like, what the heck kind of beginning is this? Nudity, by the way, nudity alert. Like I remember seeing some movies when I was watching the AFI Top 100. They had some nudity back in that day. They were showing girls like boobs and girls like, there's going to be some nudity in the opening scene. So just so you're aware, because I know I have some family and people like that who are squeamish and stuff like that. So be aware there's some nudity in the opening scene, and then it ends up being for a reason and stuff. Not like gratuitous like some of the other movies I've seen, whatever, and then that's it for the rest of the movie. But boy, oh boy, oh boy, like the horror like comes towards the end. Well, I don't want to give everything away and stuff like that, but the thing is that people can relate. Does that make sense? Like people can relate, and then there are twists and there are turns, and there's things that you don't expect. And it is interesting because there's a lot where you think that there's a lot where you think that there's a lot where you're like, oh, this is like every other movie. You know, all the other movies do it this way. And then it turns out, no, it's not actually that way. I kind of feel stupid now because I know some things, but I didn't know when I was watching the movie. I found out some things afterwards and I'm like, oh, for heaven's sakes. But I didn't know when I was watching the movie. I just kind of pissed off now. But I'm just like, oh. But I didn't know. So, oh well. But anyway, so I didn't know any of that until like a couple days ago. So what can I do? But this is before I made the list, and this is an amazing, that wraps up like October Insider Movies. And that means you guys are going to have an amazing Halloween. And I hope you enjoy like the vintage and everything like this. This is a Chopard or whatever from New York, vintage hat. I was really looking forward to wearing it for you. I'm so glad I could wear it for you for Halloween and do something beautiful for you that's a bit more appropriate for me. And even be able to do eyelashes for you. That was a really, really big deal for me. So I was very, very proud to be able to do that for you. And I hope that you guys have an amazing, amazing Halloween. And hello, Tiberius. Do you want to come and say hello to everybody? Oh, look, it's Tiberius! Hello, kitty, you're naked! You're naked! Boom! And you even got to see Tiberius. What a Halloween surprise! Yay! Insider Movies Season 2 is officially complete. We made it! Yay! I'm so happy that we made it. Oh my gosh, I just realized we actually did season 2. We actually did season 2. Oh my gosh, you guys, last year I really wasn't. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. Okay, we have to celebrate. We have to celebrate. Oh my gosh, they're going to make me watch another Halloween movie. Oh God. All right, I'm not showing them this video until after Halloween. Not till after Halloween. I'm not even going to say, let's just say this is good. We've done 2 seasons. Let's not even mention next year, right? No, this is good. We're happy. Yay! Happy Halloween 2018, everybody. I love you so much. I love you so much. If you could, please give a donation below to thank me for all my hard work. Please give a thank you. Pay it forward. That would really, really help out with everything that I do. I do put a lot of work in. It's not easy for me to do. And it's very, very painful. It would be really, really great. And if you want to, you can go ahead and watch one of these videos. And I love you so much, and have a wonderful, wonderful, safe, happy Halloween. Hopefully enjoying the absolute joy, scare, and fright of it all, and hopefully not experiencing any of the dark. I'm so glad we learned that this year. It's going to make it, I think, a much, much, much better, much more fantastic, much more spooky, and much more celebratory Halloween for all of us. Woohoo! Happy Halloween, happy Hollywood, happy filmmaking, and I'll see you next time. Bye.